All right, y'all, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be testing 4 pre-washes. These are all pretty popular products. You don't hear a lot about the griots, but the Road Warrior is pretty popular. The Touchless is, pretty much the standard. But Armor Decon doesn't get a lot of hype for a pre-wash, so we're going to test them all. So just a quick run through the cost. So the Built Hammer is $57 a 5 liter. The Road Warrior comes in gallon and 5 gallon sizes, but for the gallon it's $15. The griots, this is the only option for the Brilliant Finish Snow Foam, and that is $20 for 48 ounces. And then the Armor Decon soap is $60 a gallon. I kind of went for the middle of the road recommended dilution of all of them, and that's what we're going to use it at. So we're going to do a 1% panel impact ratio, or around 100 to 1 for the Built Hammer. We're going to do a 2% for the Road Warrior. Their recommended is 1 to 2%, but it's so much cheaper. We might as well, give it its best chance. The griots recommends 100 to 1. Just standard across the board. They say 1 to 8, and if I look at an average foam cannon dilution, that's what it comes out to. And then the Armor Decon, we're going to do 150 to 1, 0.75% PIR. So a couple things, these two have corrosion inhibitors in them, so they'll kind of calm down any flash rust on the surface. If you have bare metals or anything like that, they're going to be much safer, because they're going to be higher alkaline than these other ones. But we'll test that. We'll test the pH values and all that. As far as cost per wash goes, so that's putting $1.25 for the Built Hammer Touchless. If we're making 500 milliliters of total solution, it's going to be 87 cents for the Road Warrior, $1.50 for the Brilliant Finish, and then $1.15 for the Armor Decon. So, they're all going to be pretty pricey in that range. You always want to vary your pre-wash depending on how dirty your car is. You don't want to just hit it with a hammer. You see some guys on YouTube just using the Built Hammer at 2% all the time. That's, a massive waste of product. And, why do you need to degrease your car that often like that? That's just a waste of product, and you're being too hard on the surface for no reason. Dial it back. Use the knob on the top of your foam cannon, if you want to mix it at 2%, and then just dial the knob back all the way, for the Armor Drift. That would bring you down to 1, or however you want to do it, just so your foam's strong enough to cling on the surface. But anyway, so we're going to go ahead and mix these up, and then we'll get to testing. So I'm going to do that on camera right now. We're going to mix 250 mils of total solution here. I don't need a full foam cannon of all these to test them against each other. So we're going to do that right now. So the Armor Decon, we're going to look for 1 ounce in here, or 30 mils. Need a little more there, just over 250 mils. And so we can see the Armor mixed very well. It mixed itself. There's nothing sitting in the bottom or anything to worry about having to stir or shake or anything like that. It mixes very well. And I'm using reverse osmosis water here. All right, so we're going to be going right for 50 mils here of the griots. I actually haven't opened this one yet. Yeah. I did go through and shake all of these up. Sometimes you want to shake your soaps, make sure everything is in a good mixture. I got to check the pH on the Armor, but I know it's pretty high. It's going to be around 11. Let's check it for the griots. And this mixed fine. It poured very well. It's a thin product. So this is a pH neutral. So we're pushing 7.3. As far as smell goes, the Armor is fruity. Not sure what that smells like. I can't really pin it down. Not sweet. It's almost citrusy smelling. So we can see it poured cleanly out of here. I'm going to go ahead and just check the pH on the Armor just so we're consistent across the board. So we got an 11.7. All right, next up, the Road Warrior. And so this is going to get 90 milliliters in 250. So I go 140 and fill it up to 250. And this just smells like alcohol. It smells like rubbing alcohol. So they claim Road Warrior is pH neutral. you can see, that is not the case. 11.4. So it is right up there with Armor. And finally, we have the built hammer. So that's going to be another 45 milliliters. So go just above 200. This is the thickest product of all of them. Check the pH. This one does need a little stirring. 11.3. They're all right around the same pH except for the griots. There's a little bit stuck in the bottom here that didn't mix in. So as far as smell goes, it actually doesn't smell horrible. I mean, it just smells like a cleaner, right? This smells rough, but that smells like a cleaner. So it doesn't have a scent. Okay, so everything's all poured up. Evaluating the pH. So, the Armor was an 11.7. We were 11.3 on the Road Warrior, 11.4 on the Built Hammer. So, these two are very close to each other. It is strange that they claim Road Warrior's pH neutral, and it's definitely not. You can see here from the technical data sheet, it shows a pH of 7.5 in the bottle, 7.2 at 2% solution. That's clearly not true. So just wanted to stop and highlight that. But anyway, we'll go see how they perform. This should be really interesting. All right, we'll see you out there. So what I'm going to do is the back side of the front door, from here forward, I'm going to do with one, and then from there back. First up, we have the Griots Brilliant Finish Snow Foam. Very windy today. Nice thick foam. Next up, we've got the Superior Road Warrior. And so we're just going to let them dwell until one decides it's not going to dwell anymore. So we're just going to let these dwell. So this car has a Garage Therapy Sigma on it. That's the only form of protection. We'll see what it does. These are both dwelling quite well. It's 41 degrees, so it's optimal conditions for a long dwell time. We can just let them sit here and eat. Let it go a little longer. I don't really see any drying out on either one of them. And then we'll kind of just compare in the middles of the doors there. I am starting to see some patches of drying out here on the Road Warrior side, so I think I'm going to go ahead and start rinsing. The Road Warrior being a stronger alkaline product, and its Brilliant Finish being a pH neutral, I'm less concerned, but let's go ahead and rinse. So if we look at the hydrophobics, we can definitely see more here than there. There's definitely just sheeting there, and we've got hydrophobics there. My concern was that the Road Warrior was going to be a little harder on the protection. Let's get a paper towel. So I got this paper towel here. I mean, it's not even close. The Griot side versus the Road Warrior. There's definitely dirt on the Road Warrior side, but the Griots is far dirtier. Next up, got Built Hammer. Good thick coverage. Now let's hurry up and get the Armor on. See, I missed the spot there on the bottom. So we can see a much thicker foam with the Armor, but I mean, they're both wetting out the surface really well. I can see, like on the door handle here, there's not as good a coverage with the Built Hammer, whereas the Armor, it's just covered in foam. Thick foam isn't the goal. The goal is foam that just clings onto the surface, covers the surface evenly. We'll let this dwell for a minute, and I'll be back to check on it. They're all dwelling really well. I am seeing quite a bit more dry patches in the Built Hammer than I am in the Armor. There's like very few. I see a little bit here, but very little. That just gives it, more ability to eat the grime. Let's give this a shot. So if I look at the hydrophobics, I'm seeing a lot better beads on the Armor side. I can already see it. The built hammer is cleaner. Let's give it a wipe. All right, y'all, let's wrap this up. So the paper towels had some time to dry here, and I made this nice little graphic to show that the Built Hamber seemed to clean the best, followed by the Superior, followed by the Armor, and then the Griots was a good step behind all of them. Now remember, the Road Warrior is not pH neutral. They claim it is, but we measured it at a pH of 11.3, and so that's pretty highly alkaline. Their SDS sheet and their technical data sheet both say it's a pH of 7. To dilute it from an 11.3 to a pH of 7, you'd have to dilute it something like 10,000 to 1. So something's drastically off in their measurement there. So keep that in mind. I hear a lot of people saying it's pH neutral. Anyway, we can see the 3 alkaline products did really good, and then the griots just couldn't compete. Now, it really seemed out of place here, but I did some research, and it is really similar chemically to the foaming surface wash. To me, it should have performed similarly, and I see a lot of great reviews of that product, but it just couldn't hang here. This car was pretty dirty. We had a snowstorm, and then it rained for days after that, and a lot of miles got put on this car through the process. So moving on to the cost per wash. So the griots was also the most expensive, so just another reason to toss that out. But so if we look at, if we used half a foam cannon, it'd be $1.25 for the touchless, 87 cents for the Road Warrior, and $1.15 for the Armor Decon. And so this is kind of right in the middle of all their recommended dilutions. The Road Warrior was a little bit on the higher side of the recommended dilution. Touchless, you could definitely dial back, and it cleaned better than the Road Warrior here. So, if we used half as much touchless, it would be cheaper than the Road Warrior. So, that's something to note. And, I don't think using touchless at 1 or 2% PIR all the time is that necessary. 2% should be for a very, very dirty car. For me, I never really even needed a 1%. 0.5 is plenty. So that makes it much more cost effective, when you're only using 60 cents a wash. The Road Warrior, I think it's just fully going to be reserved for a strip wash. It's never going to be used as a normal pre-wash for me, unless it's a fleet wash vehicle, or something like that, something that's, a big piece of machinery that is just hammered, and we really need to strip the surface off from all kinds of, bonded contaminants. If you've got mold on there, or, the black streaks. It was designed to wash buses. And then the Armor Decon, I think I use that the most. It mixed the easiest between it and Built Hamber. Those are really the only two that I would consider for a pre-wash. The Armor Decon smells a lot better. It mixes easier. About the same price for the big jug. The cost per wash here was a little less. It didn't clean as well. But, I don't need this much cleaning power typically. I could get away with much less, using 1 ounce and half a foam cannon for an Armor Decon is reasonable. Another thing worth noting, the Armor Decon you can get on sale all the time, sometimes 10, 15, 20% off. The touchless, it's going to be a lot harder to get on sale. Detailed Image sometimes has that, but then you're going to pay shipping. For me, the Armor Decon ends up being a good bit cheaper than the Built Hamber. I think both the Built Hamber Touchless and the Armor Decon have their place here. The Road Warrior is easily available. If you order it through O'Reilly's, you can go pick it up. So that's, something worth noting. Like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what your favorite pre-wash is. I can put it in the lineup for my next test, next time I get a dirty car in here. Stay tuned for more. I'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.